I've really been grappling with this week, especially it suddenly feels like extra obvious in the last few weeks how much of the content, emails, Instagram, like everywhere that I am reading, even on Substack, which kind of boils my blood, is AI generated. With this kind of it's not sudden, it's a creeping awareness of just how much of the words that we are all reading every day have been written by AI and not a human, a living, breathing human with their unique voice. It made me suddenly feel like almost disgust and sadness. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast, your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hello, Woo crew, and welcome back to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and I am here today with a solo episode. Have you ever held back from speaking your truth or showing up and being vocal and visible out of fear of what others might think? Me too. What I didn't realize when I first started the journey that led me to where I sit today, speaking to you, was that this fear of being too loud, too much, too different, it wasn't just in my head. It was ancestral. It was generational. It was called the witch wound. And it's a wound that I share with most, if not each and every one of you. A deep, inherited fear that whispers, if I speak my truth, I'll be cast out. If I stand in my power, I won't be safe. Instead of letting that ancestral wound keep me quiet, keep me small, I chose to heal it. I reclaimed my voice, my rhythms, my rest, and I built this business that nourishes me instead of depleting me. And now I help others do the same, to create lives that allow them to remember the wisdom that lives deep inside of them, to feel connected to their bodies, their inner power, to other women, and to the earth herself. If something in you is stirring right now, if you're ready to stop shrinking, stop apologizing, and start showing up fully in your power, connected to your own body and the magic of the earth, I'd love to support you. On February 18th, I'm offering a free masterclass all about the witch wound, how it shows up in your life, how it's holding you back, and most importantly, how to heal it. I would love so much if you would join me. The sign-up link, as always, will be below in the show notes, or you can head to myluminouslife.ca/witchwound. Full disclosure, was not going to be releasing an episode for you today because come Friday of just last week, I was unsure what I wanted to say. I was feeling really down and overwhelmed and tired. And yeah, I had one of those weeks, where it felt like my week was super full. And yet when I looked back at the week, it felt like I hadn't actually accomplished very much, which is not true. I know it's not true. And that's how I was feeling. And so I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to give myself permission to not record and edit and get scheduled a podcast for Monday. I do try to get them done sooner than that. It varies immensely. And my VA, my assistant, is incredibly patient with me when I'm like, hey, here's an episode on Saturday. Can you get it up for Sunday? Anyways, so this morning I sat down to write my morning pages, and I hadn't been writing them the last couple of days for various reasons. I have a book that I really need to read for book club. It's incredible, and I had other things that I just felt like needed my attention and priority. But this morning I was like, okay, get back into the habit. These things that we do for ourselves can be really hard to keep up with sometimes. When life gets busy and full, we tend to let the things that support and nurture us slide first. I was actually just talking to a client about that this week. So anyways, it's Saturday morning. I sit down to write, and I start exploring why it is that I have been so resistant to writing my morning pages lately. And part of that is because I have felt, in comparison to some of the other women that I'm walking through the artist pages with this time, that I'm not getting the results they're getting. I'm not having breakthroughs. I'm not receiving inspiration and downloads. And basically I start telling myself, or recognizing that I've been telling myself, a very familiar story for me. And it's a victimhood story to some extent, but it doesn't sound on the surface like victimhood. It's this story of I am uniquely broken. And the things that work for other people in terms of personal breakthroughs and healing modalities and spiritual enlightenment and business growth and all of these things, they work for everyone else, but I'm uniquely broken. They don't work for me. And this is a story that I've been walking with and working with and, unraveling and peeling away and feeling like, okay, cool, I've dropped that story. Oh, no, here it is. It's back again. And so I got this clarity, and also this moment of remembering, it's not my first time walking through the artist's way. Of course, the breakthroughs feel really big, or often are really big. If it's the first time you're exploring these topics in this practice, it's likely you're going to have some pretty big, like, whoa, I had no idea moments. And of course, as soon as I acknowledge this, I start thinking about my writing in general. And as these things do, it's a stream of consciousness journaling. I suddenly have an idea for a podcast episode that absolutely needs to get recorded right now. So here I am. And I don't think, aside from, passing mention on this podcast, I don't think that I've really talked about or dug into the topic of AI. And so we're here. We're going to talk about it. And we'll probably talk about it again because it's not going anywhere. And I hope that the ways that we explore this topic together here will be perhaps new or a different lens than you've been used to thinking about or reading about AI with. And some of it will not be, right? Some of it'll just be like, oh yeah, I've heard other people say these things or talk about it this way. And that's, obviously I'm living in the same world as you. There's going to be some overlap. So all that to say, I started thinking about so yesterday I went to create a carousel post for Instagram, and full disclosure, I have been using ChatGPT to help me with my content there because it's a lot. I am one human running a business. I have an assistant, but they're not in the creative capacity, right? And so when it comes to creating content that comes out every day or every other day on a platform that I'm actively trying to disengage from, it has been really easy or supportive to have a virtual assistant helping me with some of that content. So that's my full disclosure. What changed yesterday and what got me thinking about this today and where our conversation is going to go today is that yesterday I took the prompt that I'd asked chat to generate for me. I'm leading up to the Witch Wound Masterclass, which you'll have heard me talk about right at the beginning of this episode. And I have an arc of posts to help you understand more what it is, to understand how it's impacting you, to understand why this masterclass might be of value to you. And one of the things that chat has done for me is mapped out the content, at least the kind of topic and some prompting bullet pointy type info for the posts. And yesterday, rather than succumb to kind of the fatigue I was feeling and saying, okay, chat, can you just please write me the post for this carousel? I said, no, you know what? I've really been grappling with this week, especially it suddenly feels like extra obvious in the last few weeks how much of the content, emails, Instagram, like everywhere that I am reading, even on Substack, which kind of boils my blood, is AI generated. And so yesterday I wrote my own carousel post. I took some of the prompts. I let my brain do the work. And yes, it took longer. And no, it didn't sound as professionally polished. Maybe it might not have had quite as punchy a call to action at the end. But with this kind of sudden, it's not sudden, it's a creeping awareness of just how much of the words that we are all reading every day have been written by AI and not a human, a living, breathing human with their unique voice. It made me suddenly feel like almost disgust and sadness. There's so much going on in my brain here, and stay with me. I hope that I'll keep you here with me through this exploration, because I don't feel like it's a cut and dry area by any means yet. But I don't know about you. When I'm reading, it's becoming more and more obvious to my brain when the content is AI. And I'm not saying like that really cookie cutter generic, when AI first came out, it was like a freaking alarm bell siren of like, this is not a human. It wasn't very good. But as people have fed more of their own work into AI, have paid for the AIs that learn from you and learn how you talk and how you speak, it got a lot harder to recognize there for a little while because AI suddenly didn't sound so robotic. But what I'm noticing now is that even though it's more subtle, it's becoming more obvious. And maybe it's because I've used it quite a bit myself. But the pacing, the phrasing, the way it breaks up paragraphs, the voice, the rhythm. So I've been talking about this a lot lately. I love the word rhythm. I mean, it makes sense in a lot of contexts. And what I've noticed is that it's like a tell for me with AI writing. It shows up so frequently when AI writes for me. I'm noticing it in multiple other creatives and entrepreneurs that I follow or whose email lists I'm on, that it shows up in their writing as well. And that word paired with the like triplets of things paired with M dashes is like this huge giveaway. And so I'm bringing this here because it's gotten me thinking about our voices, using our voices. It's gotten me thinking about how when I sit down to write now, my own voice is starting to mimic and mirror this type of pattern. I'm falling into the same way of writing as what AI pumps out. And that makes sense. When we consume things, there's a book that my dad gave me once that's called Steal Like an Artist, right? We're constantly borrowing ideas from our environment. Those of us who are creatives, yes, we get these downloads. We're all creatives, let's be honest. But yes, we can get these downloads and these insights and these ideas, and they are filtered through our own unique lens, but we're always borrowing and learning and being inspired by others. And so if we're learning and borrowing and being inspired by AI, it makes sense that our own creations and outputs will start to look and sound more like AI. Like, is anyone else compelled to use M dashes all the time now? Did you even know how to use them or what they were before AI? Because I sure didn't. I had to look up how to make one happen on my keyboard when I found myself like, oh yeah, I think this is the appropriate moment for this. But then how did I used to write when I didn't have them? Because I used to write prolifically without even knowing what they were. So again, coming back to this idea of, our voices, our individual unique voices. Yes, we've always borrowed from the voices we're hearing around us, but they used to be all their own individual uniqueness too. And I'm thinking about our voices, especially as women, in the context of the witch wound too, because our voices are a huge part of our power, right? Silencing our voices is a means of control. And historically, women's voices and marginalized people's voices have been silenced throughout history. All the history books for most of human civilization, at least the since we've had writing, they're written by men in power. And women's voices and those people who are on the margins, those voices have been silenced throughout history, have been disregarded, have been hidden. And it came to me this morning that what's happening with AI is another silencing of our voices. Sure, we're speaking. Sure, sometimes we're even saying audacious things through AI, prompting it to say them for us, maybe. Or saying them ourselves, but being impacted by how much of that we're reading. But they're being flattened, they're being homogenized, and they are being sanitized, even if we're trying to say risky things. Especially because so many of the platforms that we use to communicate and to connect and to try to spread our ideas are platforms that heavily police and silence any voice saying things that might be disruptive, that might be about sexuality, that might be about genocide, Palestine. There's all the words that you see people writing with weird characters and shit on Instagram. It's because they don't want to be shadow banned. It's because they don't want to have their account taken away from them for saying things that might not fit the narrative that the bloated white men at the top of the heap don't want circulating. So we're being silenced. Our voices are being flattened, homogenized, sanitized, literally taken away from us. What are we giving away when we let AI do our talking for us? What are we giving away when we let it do our critical and creative thinking for us? So when I started to jot down the points I wanted to talk about today, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to go and get chat to write me an outline. I was like, shit. And I sat with it. I was like, maybe I will. I didn't, FYI. There's no AI in this content. Well, with the exception of the show notes. Full disclosure there. That's how those get written. But what are we giving away, right? Our creative and critical thinking. So many of us now, ever since we've had a computer in our pocket, many of us don't give ourselves a chance to wonder or to ponder or to think through to find an answer to a question. We simply Google it. And that's been going on for ages. I have a whole episode on the idea of wonder, both wonderment of like awe, but also the discovery or the curiosity or the magic of being able to let yourself just wonder. We used to ask questions and not have the answer. We just had to wonder about it because we didn't have an encyclopedia in our phone. Most of us didn't even have an encyclopedia at home. We might have to go to the library to find out the answer to the question. And that was like, we got along just fine. And there was so much more mystery and enchantment to life and presence. Anyways, so that's one piece of it, right? That side of not letting ourselves wonder. And I feel like AI has like upped the ante on that, because now we're also like, oh, how should I say that thing? How should I advocate for myself to my boss? And again, I think that there's a time and a place for these tools. Yes, I want you to be able to advocate for a raise to your boss, or to pitch an idea and have it be maybe more succinct or more impactful than your particular skill set allows. I'm not a marketer. I am working on being a copywriter, but I didn't know so much when I entered into this business. And so again, I'm not decrying its use entirely. I'm just like putting these questions here. And I know there's probably lots of you listening who already are like, fuck no, AI is no place in my business, in my life, in anything. And there's probably others who are like, yeah, I'm working with it daily. And there's no shame. There's no judgment here. But we know that it's shrinking our brains. We already have, just a few short years into its proliferation, we already have evidence to show that like our critical reasoning skills are dropping. Our creative parts of our brain are atrophying because we're not using them. And part of the issue, I know, because it's for me very true, is that we're also fucking exhausted. That having this mind outside of our mind that's free and easy to access, that can think for us, feels like a huge relief. And it is. And at what cost? It feels like it's playing right into the system that is capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy, this extractive, exploitative, linear idea of progress and growth that is onward, upward, bigger, better, right? Like it's not sustainable. We're already in the beginning, if not middle stages, I don't know. Somebody else who's more versed in this can tell you, but of collapse, right? This planet can no longer sustain our modern progress. There's lots of quotation marks happening around progress right now. And again, the kind of overarching structural systems, the system of, I forgot patriarchy in my list of words to describe where we are, it relies on us staying exhausted to continue to thrive. It exploits us in addition to the planetary resources. And then when this tool comes in, we're all like, oh, we get back a bit of our time and our effort and all of that jazz. But it's taking away one of the most beautiful pieces of being a human, which is our creative faculties and our ability to think and reason and connect with each other through that kind of conversation. So I don't have any answers here. But I think that I'm painting a picture of where my line of thought is going around this. There's a book called Ways of Being by James Bridle. I heard about it first on the On Being podcast by Krista Tippett, which is the most gorgeous podcast I've ever encountered. And James Bridle, in this book, they explore AI as in artificial intelligence's possibilities that aren't simply furthering the cause of capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy, colonialism, extractive, exploitative, which the AI models that we are working with on a daily, ChatGPT, Gemini, all of those, they are created in and from the image of capitalism and exploitation and this isms area that we live in, right? This society that is right now really having its kind of like death throw, grasping, gasping attempt to hang on to what it has created all of these years. And in the book, James explores other possibilities outside of our current framework, and maybe even ability to conceptualize for many of us of what an artificial intelligence could look like if, rather than continuing or worsening or furthering this exploitation and unsustainability, harming the environment, taking so much in terms of resources, especially water, which were already, before AI came onto the scene, I remember there being discussions of like, what are we going to do when water runs out? Of, the hulking behemoth of the United States beneath Canada, and I mean in terms of population, and all of Canada's fresh water, and of the glaciers melting at faster and faster rates. And that's where we get so much of our fresh potable water from, right? There's already this issue, and then we created this technology that requires a vast amount of water to run. And so James Bridle's book, Ways of Being, it explores this idea that AI doesn't have to be this harmful entity. It doesn't have to continue the harm and the extraction and the exploitation that capitalism tells us is progress, is the peak of human civilization. There are other ways we could conceptualize an intelligence outside of our own. And they go through in their book, other forms of intelligence too, not just artificial, but, plant intelligence and the intelligence of animals and of the land. Our kin, our more than human kin. We haven't recognized those intelligences as intelligence for most of our history, or recent history rather, at least since industrialization. But they're there, they exist, whether or not we recognize them as such. So I'm not saying here that AI is abhorrent in and of itself. I do believe that there is a practical use for it. I know it's here. And so how do we relate with it, right? How do we have a relationship with it? It's not going anywhere, at least not any time in the near future, and probably not the distant future either. But how could we reconceptualize an artificial intelligence? How can we engage with it ethically? I mentioned that I had thought about pumping this idea into chat so that I could get a really nice, clear, concise outline for you, make this less of a ramble and more of a nice, neat package. But the truth is, I'm so tired of optimizing everything. Do I want you to be listening to this and finding value? Of course. Do I want this to have a nice, neat arc that ties everything back into the witch wound? I'm getting there. Yes, I do. Of course. I want you to see that this upcoming free masterclass is going to be so potent and valuable, and you're going to walk away from this episode wanting to sign up. But do I want AI to tell me how to create a sales arc out of this episode? No, not at all. This was truly, whether or not I had anything to promote coming up, I wanted to come on and talk about this topic because it felt important. And so I kept it out of the hands of AI. And coming back to the witch wound, right? I mentioned at the beginning too, that silencing of our voice. I think the witch wound and this topic of AI is super relevant right now, because of a big part of that wound being the silencing of voices, primarily women's voices, but the common people's, again, voices. We came full circle here. I think it's important to talk about. That's it. I think it's important to talk about. And it's messy to talk about, right? Again, no shade on anyone who's using AI. I use it plenty, as I've mentioned. It's a super valuable tool. And also, I would really love to be able to move away from it entirely. I received an email from Chani. I subscribe to Chani Nicholas's app and her podcast, and I get emails from them, and they're hiring again. I'm always like, oh my God, could I be the person they hire? And it's never a role that I'm qualified for. But, one of the things that they're hiring for currently is a senior astrology writer, and it's right in the like description. They're like, we're not using AI. They're not using AI in their business. They're using human power. And that feels like something I would really, really, really love to continue to build. And so this is getting me thinking about being more careful, more intentional. Will I keep using it for now? Yes, in small ways. It's super helpful for structure. If I have a big idea for something valuable to share with you, it can be super helpful for you to have it structured in a way that makes sense. Could I get there on my own? Probably. And do I have the 2, 3, 4 hours it might take me to get that structure in place? Sometimes not. And yeah, it's I don't know, it's this really murky area, but there's a lot of noise. If you are in business, there's going to be lots of business gurus screaming that you'll lose the advantage if you're not using it. And for me personally, I don't want a multi-million-dollar behemoth of a business. I want a small, sustainable, profitable business that supports me enough that I can support the causes I care deeply about in this world. Environmental justice, social justice, those big ones that need our attention if we're going to continue on this planet through ongoing collapse. This is not a neat and tidy arc. It's messy. It's human. And I am carrying on in my commitment to bring you podcast episodes that are human made. Will I sometimes have a ChatGPT create an outline for me so that I stay on track? Yeah, I probably will. And I really enjoyed sitting down and writing my notes out myself this morning so that I could come on and make sure I hit all the points, even if they don't totally make sense, even if I kind of got sidetracked and went in a different direction and found myself again and came back, and it's not neat and tidy. And I want to do more and more of it that way. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. I know there's going to be some of you who are like really not impressed by the fact that I have used and will continue for the time being to use AI in my business to some extent. I hope that you'll find some, good food for thought at the very least in this conversation. Again, coming back to how do we engage with this technology in an ethical manner, even down to thinking about, if you use chat at all or one of them, do you talk to them like you would a human? Do you say, hi, how are you today? Do you say thank you? We have studies that show that people who interact with AI that way typically are those who are more interpersonal in their own lives. And so carrying on our humanity too, right? Not losing that, treating this intelligence as an intelligence. And can we find a way to walk this world in co-creation with this ever-growing, evolving being that we've created? I don't know. Yeah, this is not neat. This is the end. I truly hope that you will join me for the Witch Wound Masterclass that's happening on February 18th. As I mentioned, there are 2 times available to come and join me live. I'll be dropping us into some guided journey work, which is always so potent and powerful, especially if you can be there live. And also, life is busy. And so maybe neither of the times I'm holding it work for you. It's noon and 7 Mountain Time on the 18th. So maybe you just sign up to grab the replay. And maybe you're listening to this days, weeks, months, years even after that class came out. The replay is available. The replay is available. Okay, come find me on Instagram, at I am Eileen March, or send me an email, eileen@myluminouslife, and tell me how you are navigating, grappling with, using, not using, hating, loving AI in all its iterations. I'd love for this to be a conversation. As always, if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, comment on YouTube, rate, review on any of those podcast platforms that you might be on, and share this episode with a friend. I will be back here again this time next week with you with a guest episode. I can't remember who it is yet right now. I haven't edited it yet, but it's recorded. So I'll have a delightful guest episode for you coming up next week on Monday. For now, I will wish you all a beautiful week. Get outside, feel the air on your face today, feel your feet on the land, and let yourself wonder about something. Okay, Woo Crew, that's all for now.